All right, class, let's settle in. Today, we're jumping right into a deeply researched historical explainer covering a truly catastrophic conflict. We're talking about a war fueled by greed, pride, and hatred that literally reshaped our entire planet, World War I. On the surface, Europe in the early 1900s looked pretty calm. But beneath all that, political rivalries and a massive hunger for power were quietly brewing. So let's start with a crucial question to really anchor our lesson today. What exactly could push the entire world into a brutal 4-year nightmare that literally no one saw coming? Most people at the time actually assumed that if a war broke out, it'd be over in a matter of months. Instead, they got an unprecedented level of destruction and suffering that fundamentally altered human history. Here's the agenda for today's explainer. We'll be going through the European powder keg, the spark and domino effect, the hell of trench warfare, deadly new military technologies, America enters the war, and finally, the bitter end and legacy. Section 1, the European powder keg. Let's look at those pre-war tensions. Around the year 1900, Europe was gripped by an intense climate of fear. Nations were absolutely obsessed with becoming the most powerful forces on the globe. Germany, especially, was rapidly becoming a dominant power, strengthening its military and churning out weapons at a staggering rate. And naturally, this completely terrified nations like the United Kingdom and France. This fear ended up splitting Europe into two massive, heavily armed camps. You've got the Allied powers, the United Kingdom, France, and Russia, and facing them, the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. By dividing the continent up into these opposing networks, these major players basically built a giant powder keg just waiting to explode. All it needed was a single spark. Section 2, the spark and domino effect. The final catalyst. The ultimate trigger hits on June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is visiting Sarajevo with his wife. Now, in an incredibly bizarre twist of fate, an initial assassination attempt completely fails. But later that exact same day, a young assassin named Gavrilo Princip happens to be standing outside a cafe, just eating a sandwich, when the Archduke's car coincidentally stalls right in front of him. I mean, what are the odds? Princip stepped forward, fired the fatal shots, and killed the Archduke and his wife instantly. This wasn't just a tragedy. This was the spark. Austria-Hungary immediately blamed the nation of Serbia, sending shockwaves across the whole continent. And because of those complex treaties we just went over, no conflict could actually remain local. It was a deadly domino effect. Step 1. Austria-Hungary moves against Serbia, but Russia steps in to help the Serbs. Step 2. Germany backs Austria-Hungary and attacks France. Step 3. The United Kingdom is pulled right into the fray. Just like that, within weeks, almost all of Europe is engulfed in flames. Section 3. The hell of trench warfare. The abyssal reality. We have to contrast two very different realities here. Initially, there was this arrogant optimism, rapid military buildups, intense national pride, and a totally naive belief in a quick, glorious victory. Leaders and citizens eagerly rushed to the front lines. But the actual experience? It was one of agonizing despair. The troops found themselves completely trapped in a slow, grueling war of attrition, where the front lines barely moved an inch for years. Our sources describe this as an abyssal reality. They literally called it the hell of trenches. Soldiers dug these long, narrow ditches deep into the earth just to hide from enemy fire. And down there, they lived in constant psychological terror. They were fighting through deep mud, freezing rain, and rampant disease. They'd often go days without proper food, the sound of gunfire was absolutely continuous, and this constant fear of death just hung over them. They knew that a single small mistake, like raising your head an inch too high, could mean immediate death. Section 4. Deadly new military technologies. Weaponizing science. Science and industry brought destruction on a scale the world had never seen, fundamentally redefining the intensity of warfare. Just consider these major innovations. You have machine guns mowing down advancing troops with hundreds of rounds a minute, massive, heavy tanks designed to crush trench lines and break through defenses, airplanes being used for the very first time, launching deadly attacks from the sky above. But perhaps the most terrifying of all, poisonous gas. This horrific chemical weapon left soldiers completely unable to breathe, causing thousands to die in extreme agony. It's a sobering reminder of how rapidly technology can scale human suffering. Section 5. America enters the war, shifting the balance. This bloody global stalemate finally broke after a chain of provocative events. Back in 1915, German submarines were aggressively sinking ocean vessels. This included the RMS Lusitania, a passenger ship, which resulted in the tragic deaths of many innocent people and deeply angered the neutral United States. That growing outrage simmered until 1917, ultimately leading to America entering the war. By 1918, that fresh strength forced an exhausted Germany to sign an armistice, paving the way for the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. The balance of power tipped decisively. The arrival of the United States injected a massive, revitalized force and fresh strength into the battered Allied powers. Germany, meanwhile, was crumbling from within. Their soldiers were completely exhausted, their resources were totally depleted, and they were facing massive internal struggles like mass starvation and civilian unrest. They simply could not sustain the fight against this revitalized Allied front. Section 6. The Bitter End and Legacy. The true human cost. 10 million. Take a moment to truly absorb that number. By the time the war ended on November 11th, 1918, an unimaginable 10 million soldiers had lost their lives. Millions more returned home with severe injuries, both physical and psychological. Entire cities were in ruins. The very fabric of human society was forever changed by the sheer scale of the slaughter. And how did the world conclude this tragedy? With the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. But instead of fostering true healing, this treaty was designed to punish. It imposed incredibly heavy financial fines on a defeated Germany and forced strict military reductions. It completely humiliated the German people. And as our sources point out, this intense resentment over the harsh terms actually set the perfect, bitter stage for another, even more devastating global conflict just a couple of decades later. I want to leave you all with a final provocative thought to ponder about the true cost of peace when it's driven by punishment and pride. As we wrap up today's lesson, ask yourselves, did the Treaty of Versailles actually secure peace for the world? Or did it just plant the dark seeds for the next catastrophic war? Thank you for joining me for this explainer class. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in our next deep dive.